Hi, we're going to talk about instructions for just a few minutes. And this lecture is a little bit shorter. To me, to understand instructions, you really don't need to listen to someone talk so much as to look at a bunch of examples and follow the rules. They're pretty straightforward. I do want to say that instructions are notorious for being bad. I don't know what your experience with instructions is, but rarely do I come across a set of instructions and think, oh, that's the most elegant set of instructions I've ever read. Usually it's, this IKEA furniture does not make sense, or how in the world am I supposed to read the size of this print, or why is it all in graphics and there isn't any text to go with it. There's a lot of problems that companies make doing instructions, and we could spend our time belaboring those, but I'd rather talk about a few things that you can do to write effective instructions. By the way, when people hear the term tech writing, they think instructions. They usually think about writing a manual. And again, that's not completely what we're doing, but the genre of instructions and the assignment associated with it embody the goals that we're going for in this class, especially if we think about the measures of excellence associated with writing instructions: clarity, accessibility, and correctness and accuracy being among the top four. And of course, you can look at the rubric to see how they've been weighted for this particular assignment. I'd like you to think just a second, pause the video, and think, what instructions have you read that are really bad? So I'll just tell you one story, and that is I was at my in-laws' house. They live in Ada, Oklahoma, and my father-in-law has a bunch of pecan trees, and they harvest those trees every year. They got a big attachment to the tractor that clamps around the trunk of the tree, and then it vibrates and shakes it, and the whole tree and the ground around it shake like an earthquake, and the pecans fall down. And then they have a harvester that is in another attachment, and it rolls around the tree and sucks up all the pecans and leaves all the sticks and dirt out. So anyway, we meaning my wife, my mother-in-law, and me, decided that my father-in-law needed some kind of way to identify which trees he had shaken so that we could then go and harvest them, because it's not always easy to tell. So my mother-in-law had the idea that she was going to get him a paintball gun. And so we bought him a paintball gun. He never used it. And so one day we're at their house, and I was like, okay, well, let's figure out how to use this paintball gun. And I had played paintball once in my life. I'd never put together a paintball gun. And of course, the instructions were in a little fold-out, and it was hard to read, and in multiple languages, and I was just like, okay, I'll just screw it together, right? You don't just screw together a paintball gun. Let me tell you that. Don't do it. There should have been a huge danger, red, bright light saying, hey, don't open the CO2 canister, because that is going to go crazy. And sure enough, I start messing with the CO2 canister, and it pops out and flies across the floor. I mean, I'm lucky nothing got shattered or broken, because it definitely had some power to it. So just the very design of instruction can discourage someone from following them, even if technically they're written very well. Remember professional appearance, and remember the qualities of good instructions. Now, I can't add a whole lot to what the textbook tells you on this one, so I want to draw your attention to the blue box on 412, which is really what you need to know as far as getting across the instructions correctly. And if you'll go with me there, you'll see the numbering of instructions, how it's clear using multiple levels of numbering in order to make things clear. Markel has 1 and 1.1 and 1.2. If you want to do that, that's fine. I think it's clear. If you want to use A and B, or 1A and 1B, that's clear. Also notice the problems with way too much information or way too little information. Getting the right amount of information. And this unit asks you to look through several examples, and so I think you'll begin to see, oh, that one has about the right amount. Ooh, no, that one's definitely got a problem. And then also separating feedback and steps at the bottom there. That is very important, and it's easy to do because you just start writing and you say, oh, do this, and then you put the feedback as part of the step or before the step sometimes or after the step but not in the right place. Being very consistent, thinking about our principles of contrast, alignment, repetition, and proximity. Those all go into play in the design of the instructions and how to put them together. That there is a big difference between feedback and the step. It is identified using the imperative mood. And then moving over on the blue box on 413, including graphics. You cannot write good instructions without graphics. that is, you wouldn't use that, you wouldn't, but even then graphics would be useful. Whether it's a screenshot or whether it's an image of what you're working with, diagrams are wonderful. If you can find a good diagram or create one, that is just not A, N, and the, I don't know, crept about, but when you're giving instructions, we feel like we need to be so concise and to the point that we just say, do this. We like speak in this very chipped way, and it's similar when we write. We somehow leave out adjectives. Get hammer. Well, get the hammer. That's how it's normally said. So the writing style comes into play, and switching to a style which maybe you perceive incorrectly to be the practical use of instructions. Now, you may not be at a job where you're explaining how to use some new engineering or piece of equipment, but a lot of groups are run and organizations are run, and very useful, difficult to parse out. Because if you say these are the steps for firing someone from your job, those steps had better be right on and not have any wiggle room for problems, right? Because if someone says, oh, well, it doesn't say this, therefore X, that can cause huge. The precision of instructions are very important. One more story, and this is from a friend of mine in the engineering department, Bradley Buxton. He used to work in the military, and at one point there were some missiles that were supposed to be delivered to a certain base, and for them it did not explain clearly how to make sure the nuclear warheads were secure. And so they were delivered from one base to another without the proper security, meaning that anybody could have, if they had figured it out, could have gotten into them and stolen them. The guy who wrote those instructions was later court-martialed because of the danger that it caused. So now, are you probably going to be doing that kind of level of work? At least not right off the bat. I mean, probably not, right? But just be aware that instructions do tell people how to treat the things that they're working with. And so you have a lot of power, but also, to use the cliche, a fair amount of responsibility too. Good luck writing your instructions.